Bam! We are live here on this wonderful Friday evening for the holiday weekend for those of us in the United States to kick things off with a discussion of Babylon 5 Season 3, which is my favorite season of Babylon 5. Brian, what about you?
I think this is my favorite too. I was thinking the same thing. This is my favorite.
So
I mean, I love season 2 a hell of a lot too. So it's kind of, but if I had to pick one, season 3.
yeah, I think most people probably agree that seasons 2, 3, and 4 are the best of the show. That's when it's really at its prime. But 3, just for me, it has like the biggest moments that at least impacted me the hardest. And so that's it's really like when the show like becomes Babylon 5. It kind of like switches gears a little bit, and it really embraces the story arcs that it's doing. You know, they've set up from the very beginning, but it really like just dives in it in season 3, and it kind of bets all their chips on their big Shadow War arc and like the Earth conflict and things that we don't want to get too into the weeds with spoilers for seasons 4 or 5, but that's the trajectory that the show stays on from this point forward. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, no, I mean, this is the one where, I mean, it kind of, at this point, it was like, all right, we're just going to totally change a huge amount of the format of the show. Kind of this is. It may have felt a little like Star Trek with the serial numbers filed off, but it does not feel like Star Trek once you get into season 3, as far as a traditional, because they're no longer working for the Earth Alliance for Starfleet, so they're it gives a very different texture to thing. Even on DS9, they never break away from Starfleet or the Federation. So yeah, it's huge, and it was just as a kid, as a teenager, the idea that you could change a show that much, and it was clearly deliberate. It wasn't some sort of, the ratings are going to crap, quick, throw Jerry Ryan on there kind of change. This was very carefully, this is where we were headed the whole time. We just didn't know they'd, as a teenager, I didn't think they'd actually go there, so the opening monologue says it all, really. It was a last best chance for peace. It failed. It's just like that's not a beat you really get in Star Trek. Certainly not up until that point.
And that was something that I never expected. Watching the first 2 seasons going into season 3, it's kind of shocking to hear that. And it's like, this is not where I thought we were building towards with the whole series. But I guess this is where we are now. And it's also the year of the Shadow War. So this is my favorite of all the opening credits is actually the one for season 3.
No, I gotta agree that's my favorite as well. I just that boom, boom, chang, boom. I mean, that's like one of the most iconic moments, openings in science fiction, in my mind. I do love the theme song for season 5. That is a piece, probably easily my second favorite. But the
3 and 5 are the most unique.
Yeah. I also think aesthetically pleasing. 5, I'll admit, rides a lot on the visuals. Like I don't know if 5 works, or not 5, sorry, 3. I don't know if season 3's opening music actually works if you strip away all the visuals and the monologue. Whereas I think 5 is just a beautiful piece of music. But it just, whatever, there's no doubt that we're kicking things into high gear and to hang on to your butts. So,
and it's one thing that Joe Michael Straczynski, the creator of the show, has talked about, how he wanted to have like these distinct opening credit sequences for his 5 different seasons. He always envisioned a 5-season show, and he took like the different parts of like a book where you have like your setup, and then you have like your ascending action up to like the climax, and then the descending action, and then the resolution at the end. And those are going to be the 5 seasons. And 3 is the climax, and then we get like that big huge moment at the end of the season that I kind of want to save till later to talk about. But let's just start at the beginning. In the first episode of season 3, we get the White Star, aka Babylon 5's Defiant, and we get a new character this year who, unlike the new character in season 2, this one actually works. Poor Warren Kiefer, rest in peace. But yeah, we have Marcus Cole.
Well, I mean, there's Sheridan in season 2, but
well, he wasn't really. I mean, he's a new character, but he was more like the replacement captain.
Yeah, he was the break class in case of emergency character. As opposed to getting a piece of furniture for Christmas that you have to put on in the house someplace because the person, you don't want to offend the person who gave it to you, but you don't necessarily want it in there. So, but yeah, I don't know. I see Marcus get a lot of hate, and I don't get it.
Antonia hates him. My partner that I'm watching the show with, the first time for her.
Yeah,
I've seen it several times. She thinks he's a weird, creepy dude. I think some of his flirtation with Ivanova she finds annoying, but the intent was for it to be kind of quirky and charming. I agree with you. I've seen that too. There's one episode in particular in season 3, so I actually saw. It was the first episode of Babylon 5 I ever watched beginning to end, and I'll bring it up in a moment. But it kind of made me like Marcus. I'm wondering if you can guess what it is. What Marcus-y episode in season 3?
I don't know. I mean, I could make some guesses, but there's I guess 2 of them that spring to mind as being pivotal, as being some fun Marcus, some very interesting Marcus stuff. I guess there are 2 of them I can think of that. One of which I've heard a lot of other people hate, but I loved. So.
Oh, I think this might be it. What episode is it? Let's just go ahead and talk about
Well, this is the season where Marcus has to fight a Minbari, right? Isn't that?
He does fight a Minbari.
Yeah.
Point.
No, so just double checking that I was right. Yeah, but there's that one which I thought was really amazing, and then there's the one. The King Arthur one.
Yes, late delivery from Avalon.
Yes,
is the name of the
which
episode.
I love, but I know people who hate that episode.
So that episode's kind of special for me because before I didn't really get into B5 when it was originally airing. Every now and then I'd see a little bit of it, and I don't know. To me, like at the time, it just felt like the Kmart Star Trek, and the CGI freaked me out. I had seen The Last Starfighter, and like other than that, like not really much CGI and not much good CGI, unless it was supposed to look like computer generated stuff like Tron. Yeah. Which the original Tron wasn't even CGI, was it? That was
well, they had CGI in it, but not as much as it looks like. Yeah, the light cycles, the vehicles, some of the backgrounds,
the hover thing.
The tanks, yeah.
You get what I'm saying. Like CGI just like wasn't something I was used to, and it just looked too artificial, and nothing looked as good as Star Trek. But one episode I actually like sat down and watched beginning to end, and I don't think it was like when it originally aired. It was a little bit later when it was on syndication somewhere. But it was that King Arthur episode, and I had never really thought about it until now when I was kind of preparing my notes for this discussion. But my favorite B5 character is Jakar, and I think a big part of that might be because the first B5 story I saw was like, oh, like this lizard man is pretty cool. He like, I don't know anything about him, but he like wants to go like fight on the side of King Arthur, and like they're like getting drunk together, celebrating about how like like we're on the side of light, and it's all so refreshing to have like this battle where like the bad guys are clearly defined. Very meta stuff for Babylon 5, which I was completely unaware of just how meta that was. But yeah, I always liked that episode. And I liked this. There was a British dude on the station with like, well, maybe he is our king returned. So, as a kid who liked Star Trek, this is kind of that. Star Trek does like the absurd, or perhaps even like audacious stuff. Like you're cruising through space and you run into Abraham Lincoln, or
Yeah.
or Apollo, stuff
Yeah.
like that. So it wasn't totally out of the wheelhouse of Star Trek, and I kind of liked it.
Yeah. No, I love that episode. I love the kind of weirdness of it. I mean, King Arthur shows up on a space station is clearly, appealing to the Doctor Who fan in me on a level I didn't realize quite at the time. I will say, in context, there is, after all, there's all this, shades of gray and politics and stuff. And so to have this kind of this purity of idealism that came with this King Arthur character, or guy who thought he was King Arthur, is it's kind of wonderfully a wonderful breath of fresh air, which was exactly what you needed in the middle of all this murky hopelessness, was to just basically drop Superman in there, even if he didn't have the superpowers. He's got this complete idealistic view that is, and it's wonderful to see that the people who he clicks with, and the people who think he's full of shit, and that's kind of tells you more about those characters too. And yeah, I just thought he was a wonderful little thing to drop in there. And I didn't even know who, what was it? Michael York, right? I didn't even know who that guy was at the time. But yeah, he does a great job. And there was a part of me that always wanted to see him come back. And yeah, Marcus gets some great stuff there.
Speaking of Marcus, we have a comment in the chat of our live audience. Alexandra Sandu. Hi, Alexandra. She says, I hated Marcus in the 2000s first time around. On the recent rewatches, I found him more enduring, let's say. The Jill, or should I say a Great Maker, has a similar comment. She also liked Marcus so much better the second time. So I guess he grows on it. It takes a while for him to grow on you. Which was the case with Ivanova. She didn't like him initially.
I guess I suppose I loved Marcus right out of the box, whereas after years later, hearing other people's list of complaints about him, going back and rewatching him, I'm like, okay, I can at least kind of see where they're coming from. I still love him to pieces, but I at least can kind of, so if anything, he kind of dropped maybe a little bit, just because I could actually see some flaws after they were pointed out to me. But I still think he's great. I would love to. I thought he was fun and energetic, and vastly more successful than Kiefer. And just dropping something so old school into this kind of more, sci-fi future setting. I mean, in a way, he is like this variation of the, the King Arthur guy is kind of just Marcus dialed up to 15 or something,
Yeah, no, he feels like he would be right at home in medieval Britain, and kind of like a classic sense of like the knights in armor type stuff, or even like he's kind of like Jedi, like the whole thing with like the Rangers. He's kind of, we don't know much about the Rangers really throughout the entire show, but especially we get them introduced into the show in season 2, and then Marcus is our first like Ranger character we get to know, and we can kind of like learn more about them. But you also get the impression he's a little bit of an atypical Ranger. Like he says, like, oh, like I just joined because of my brother, and sometimes he even seems like he's not, he doesn't have like the conviction maybe.
I guess I have to admit, to me, he was kind of the definition of what the Rangers were like, which is probably, as you're pointing out, not entirely accurate. There was several moments where he kind of says, I'm not, kind of like all the others, but since we don't get a lot of Ranger representation, at least not, I think, until season 4, really, we kind of have to, assume they're kind of like him. At least that was kind of my default casual watching. Well, not casual watching, but as a teenager, when I only got to see them once, and then they, go away. That was kind of the way I took him. Which made me like the Rangers too, as a whole. I was like, oh wow, it's a whole like little unit, special operations unit of Marcus's. That sounds great. So, yeah, that Marcus seems like he walked straight out of the Globe Theater, says Cake is Eternal, but he grew on me. Yeah, I agreed. And I think I love the anachronism of having somebody who walked out of the Globe Theater, complete with some of the melodrama implied by that statement, dropped into this show that's all about murky gray, everyone has a secret kind of stuff. And Marcus even has a secrets or two as well. But yes, I enjoyed him. I would have watched the Marcus TV show spinoff. I don't know if I should look and see if there were any novels that focused on him.
Well, like I said, my favorite character is Jakar, and if we could switch gears and talk about like another character in this season, I think Jakar gets he gets one of like the best arcs of the entire show. Londo, I should say, arguably more, but Jakar as well. But yeah, in this season, this is really where Jakar grows into kind of like the Zen, calm, collected dude. He's not as villainous as he was in season 1. He's not as like angry radical as he was in season 2. When he goes through like a bunch of stuff in the season, we get like Dust Head Jakar when he gets high on dust to get like the telepath powers, and then attacks Londo, and we get that really cool moment where he's stuck in the elevator with Londo, and he's like, "I'm not going to help you escape, so we'll both die, but at least then my family won't be punished for me killing you."
Yeah, all those scenes in the elevator are some of the the elevator sequence is probably in my top 10 favorite Babylon 5 bits. Is the stuff where they're stuck in that elevator.
That's the episode with the Mad Bomber, right?
Yeah.
So that's the thing about season 3 is a lot of like the standalone type stories like that. I feel like fall a little flat, probably like more so than some of the stuff in season 2 and even season 1. I know you probably disagree with me there because you really don't like season 1, but the bigger arc stuff really gets going in season 3. But I feel like the stuff with like that, or like the Gray 17 is missing, where there's like that weird cult in like the secret deck between the two decks.
Yeah,
and like the one with like the evil trills, where these people have like alien parasites inside of their body that kind of like take over and merge with their personality.
I mean, yeah, there are some, I guess you would call them A plots, at least as far as on paper they look like that's the one that's going to endanger the whole station, or the kind of plot. Is perhaps maybe a little more, I don't know what you want to say, paint by number-ish. Though even there's at least some effort to do something fresh. And Gray 17, I mean, I haven't seen much in the way outside of Twilight Zone that comes anywhere close to Gray 17 is missing. I think Twilight Zone does it a lot better. I think when they're trying to do those more standalone plots, I'm not sure if there's clearly an effort to do something fresh, but somehow it doesn't feel like it lands. There is a hell of a storm going on here, by the way.
Yeah, sorry if anyone can hear that. There's like an insane amount of thunder and lightning and rain that just started where me and Brian live, because we're actually just a few miles away from each other. So it started right when we started the stream. So apologies.
I'll mention it only because if I suddenly vanish, it's probably because the lightning took out a power line.
Or if I suddenly vanish. Yeah, we're both at risk. Or it's Earth Force, the Psy-Corps, trying to like shut us down.
Oh yeah,
the President Clark's troops are like right outside our doors.
Yes, they're going to claim it was lightning or the wind blowing a tree, knocking down a power line, but it wasn't that. Just going to get that out there on the front. And anyway, sorry. Before I went off on that, what were we discussing? Jakar and the plots. The point I wanted to make was that the B plots and the C plots, however, are thoroughly engrossing. And even the evil trill one, even if you think that's a little light, perhaps, and that maybe the twist isn't as clever enough to quite justify it, seeing Marcus and Franklin together as a duo is amazing. You're like, yeah, these guys are great together. So
and that's also the one where I believe, I might be mistaken, but I think that's the same episode where Ivanova is trying to recruit that bridge officer, or that
that was a
CNC
great
officer.
arc. Yes, I don't remember if that was that episode, but I do remember that was wonderful.
Lieutenant Corwin, I think.
Yeah,
is his
Corwin.
Name. Yeah. He's basically just a glorified extra, and they kind of expanded on his character, like they do with like Chief O'Brien and the Next Generation, and a lot of the TOS people, I guess.
Yeah.
Sulu was kind of a glorified extra for a little bit. Well, I guess he always had shit to do, but just some of those people were her, I will say. But anyways, like that's that kind of awkward Joe Michael Straczynski comedy that I find it works sometimes, it doesn't work sometimes, but I still overall kind of enjoy it. You can see why some people wouldn't, but the whole thing where he thinks that, oh, does she like want to talk to me about work, or is this a date, or like what's going on? She's asking like these really weird questions. He can't quite figure it out.
Yeah. No, I remember that was a lot of fun there too. I mean, I've said it in previous our previous podcast, but my problem with GMS humor is he takes a good joke and then beats it into the ground.
Yeah, or it's not as funny as he thinks it is.
Yeah, well, he thinks it's so funny we can keep running with it, and it doesn't have those kind of legs. It's get in, hit the punchline, and then move on. And he doesn't get the move on part a lot.
Something that our friend Dave has expressed to me, and I kind of agree with him now. I think it's an incredible accomplishment what Straczynski was able to do with this 5-year show, and the fact that he was able to complete his 5-season plan is outstanding, and that's just an incredible accomplishment, and it's very, very impressive. He wrote so much of the show starting here in season 3 when he kind of takes over as virtually the only writer on the show until Neil Gaiman drops by for one episode. It is kind of tiring though, hearing like that same voice constantly, and I do sometimes wish it could be a little bit spiced up with a little bit of variety from some other writers. If they could have had Dorothy Fontana or Peter David or something like these other writers that I really like, and I love their work outside of Babylon 5 as well. I do kind of wonder what kind of contributions they might have had to the show if they were still involved in the writing process.
Yeah, I think there is a certain, there could be a certain roughness, which I think is inevitable when you have one guy who's writing every single episode for the whole season and also doing all this producer duties and stuff.
And Great Maker has a perfect example of why that's a problem, by the way. But go ahead and finish your thought.
Well, I mean, it's hard to point to one particular place, but I suspect if he had been given 2 years to write this season instead of 1, it probably a lot of the roughness I think would have been smoothed out. He probably would have had a little more time to develop the voices of the characters. So because there is a certain, you're right, JMS has a great writing style, so it isn't so annoying when a lot of the characters kind of sound a little similar. At least the ones that don't have a very strong personality voice of their own, but since it's not terribly irritating, you don't notice it so much. But you're having some different writers who would push, add different flavor to the characters and put some of themselves into these other characters so that they'd be a little more complex. And I'm sure JMS would pick up on that. He was always one who, if he saw something was working, he'd push it into the spotlight. Sometimes push too hard, but and maybe if this show was made today, which I think it would be even harder to like pull off a 5-year show like this, because they don't like to renew things for multiple seasons ahead of time. They kind of take it like year by year, and I think that's kind of what they were doing back then, though.
Yeah, that's true. But I think now it'd be easier though to like take longer between seasons to do the writing, because in the streaming age, they're not like, okay, we need like new episodes in the fall, and then we need like a finale in the spring, and then you can have like a hiatus in the summer, but then we have to have a new season starting in the fall. Now like shows are kind of allowed like take their time and like, okay, when it's ready, it'll come out. So anyone who was anticipating Star Trek Discovery season 1 can attest to that.
Yeah.
Great maker in the chat says JMS was not happy with the evil Trill ep. He was distracted for a few days when writing it and forgot where he was going with it. Yeah, that's one of the problems if you're the sole writer of the TV show.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's incredibly impressive, like I said, that he was able to pull this off. And these 3 seasons that he pretty much wrote all of do have some very, very strong stuff. Speaking of which, we'll get to the big turn of the show in a moment. I just want to talk about like some of like the character stuff.
Yeah. I loved Brother Theo and his gang.
Yeah, they're a cool addition.
I think I remember as a teenager watching it. It was the first time I'd seen religious figures show up in one of my, sci-fi shows, Doctor Who, Star Trek, whatever. I mean, I guess besides the Jedi, but I never that I felt like that, especially one that was kind of Christian derived, that I didn't find them kind of boring or obnoxious. I was like, these guys are kind of cool. I would hang out with these dudes. I would like to have a conversation with these people. So I remember, I think I was surprised at the time just how much I enjoyed having them around, and wish there was more episodes that had them kind of guest star or cameo a bit more, besides just occasionally walking by in the background.
Well, they're also very like modern day, Earth 20th century religions that like exist in our like. We also get like this Black Baptist preacher later in the season, and we also have we see rabbis and a Buddhist monk, and they're all like very, very normal religious figures that you can you can find walking around a diverse city. Now you might come across like the same cast of characters. So that's unlike something like the Jedi, where it's like a space religion. It's not real. It's just in our little fantasy world. Or even like Dr. Franklin's his belief. What does he call himself?
I want to say new essentialist or something.
Or I thought it was like a fundamentalist.
Fundamentalist. I'd have to look it up.
Which they don't really explain. Like, he kind of makes it sound good just because he delivers the lines pretty well, but it's, if you think about it, it's like, okay, it's like, we believe God can't be defined, so it's kind of like we believe in everything and nothing. It kind of sounds like. Franklin is the other character I want to talk about, though. His arc with his addiction, his stilm addiction, that they do in season 3, and the whole like walkabout thing, which I like about 80-90% of that I really like, and then there's a little bit of it I don't like, where I think it's cool that they tell stories about like addiction and stuff like that. I know that's like a real thing that a lot of people can relate to, and the way that they handle it here, I think is fairly classy. And the idea of like him going on like walkabout, that makes the station really cool. You can just like kind of disappear into the innards of the station like that. But what I thought was a little weird, and I've lost Brian, so I'm just going to talk until I get him back. But what I thought was like a little weird about the Franklin storyline was that he says he has to go and find himself. I didn't need a scene or like he literally becomes like delusional and sees a version of himself. That kind of threw me for a loop the first time I saw this, and I never really liked it after that. It's just like, it's a little too on the nose, JMS. Like, it's a little too literal. Like, I think we would have got it. But if anyone has like any other like standout character moments or character arcs in season 3, be sure to share them with me and let me know. And I'll try to get Brian back. Again, we're having some let's say some subspace interference. It is a very nasty storm outside, so we will hopefully have him back But in the meantime, I want to talk about the big turning point that I hinted at. This is the season where they do break away from Earth, where they do break away from President Clark and his kind of fascistic takeover of the planet and of the government. And there's a lot of really cool stuff they do building up to that. The advantage of having a guy like GMS plan the whole thing out from day one and having these big massive arcs planned out. But as early as season one, they kind of plant seeds that there is this uh, conspiracy on Earth. We have the assassination of the Earth president. We have the Night Watch and the Department of Peace. And their whole thing, and we see them kind of basically forming a occupation force or Gestapo like the Nazis had. They even have like little armbands, a little again like on the nose. But they show a lot of that stuff with Zach Allen, and he kind of gets a lot of cool screen time and cool moments in season 3. And my lights are starting to flicker now, so I'm hoping y'all don't lose me as well, because then I don't know what we're gonna do if me and Brian both have our power go out. But we get that cool episode, Messages from Earth, where the Night Watch is trying to expand and take over, and there's the who is it, the woman who is there as kind of a, I guess she's supposed to be there as kind of like a PR person, but she's actually there to kind of gauge Sheridan, see if he's actually going to be loyal to President Clark and to that administration. And she, to the point where like she tries to like seduce Sheridan, I guess, to like get him on their side. This is where we're getting like that JMS humor, though. We're like, did we really need Ivanova to show up and be like, you're about to boldly go where every man has gone before? I think that was just like her showing up and seeing that would have been funny enough. But like Brian was saying, like, do we really need to run with the joke and keep it going like that with a comment that doesn't really make sense unless you're in a universe where like Star Trek is a real thing and you've watched it and you know about it. It kind of doesn't make a ton of sense for her to say that, but whatever. Yeah, we get the great climactic shit hits the fan moment in Point of No Return and Severed Dreams. So Great Maker is pointing out that Severed Dreams won the Hugo. Yeah, it's one of my favorite moments of the entire show. Right here, and then what happens at the end of season 3 are probably like my two most favorite moments. But the idea of the station actually declaring independence from Earth, or like succeeding from Earth, whatever you want to call it. I titled this stream Babylon 5 season 3 things you could never do in Star Trek, and this is one of them. Brian mentioned this at the top of the show, but the notion that your main characters could just change the status quo so much and be like, oh, you know what, we're not playing by this rule book anymore. We're not part of Earth Force or Earth Alliance. We are our own separate thing. The way that you also you root for them, you cheer for them, it's like you don't expect it the first time you're watching it, and then when it happens, you're just excited because you want to see that rebellion, you want to see them stand for something good. Yet it also, it's kind of masterful how it can have like that that conviction of like, yeah, you as the audience, like, this is the right thing to do and you're supportive of it. It still is balanced out with the traditional Babylon 5 shades of gray, where we have a war with other Earth Force people, and it's kind of like that American Civil War notion of like brother on brother, father against son, whatever. And there's that adds a tragedy to it when you do see like these Earth ships firing on each other. Like, could you imagine like watching Star Trek and like there's like a Starfleet civil war? Like, it'd be heartbreaking to see like those ships attacking each other and blowing each other up. So it is like very, very impactful. But yeah, point of no return and Severed Dreams. And we get the really cool moment with Delenn, where they've fought off the Earth forces, as long as they can, but there's all these more ships coming in, and Delenn has broken the Grey Council. She's had like her own rebellion that kind of mirrors what Sheridan is doing. She's gone against the Grey Council and rebelled against them, shows up with Minbari ships, and has that absolutely fantastic Delenn moment. Maybe the best Delenn moment of the entire show, when when her Minbari ships, challenges the Earth Force aggressors by saying, "Look, there's only one human that has ever defeated the Minbari in battle, and he stands behind me. You stand in front of me. If you value your life, be elsewhere." they open the jump gate and haul ass away. It's really, 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 really cool. And Brian has returned.
Yes. They said I could not make it. I should not go to Zahadum, but I did.
Did you jump?
Yes.
We're getting ahead of ourselves. We're not supposed to do the timey-wimey stuff until we get to the Babylon 4 part. But Brian, I was actually, while you were gone, I was talking about a lot of the Earth stuff, the woman, like the PR lady that comes on and tries to seduce Sheridan, and then of course the big turn in the season with Point of No Return and Severed Dreams, and the cool Delenn moment, the rebellion, seeing the Earth ships fight each other, that Sheridan. I didn't really talk about it, but like the big Sheridan speech that he gives. So if you want to like let people know your thoughts on any of that.
Well, it is good to have internet and not be cut off from the rest of society like poor Babylon 5 ended up being. Though I guess the mail.
If I drop out, you got to keep it going until I come back.
Okay. But yeah, the mail kept going. I guess that still worked. I liked and there was of course the Star Trek reference with the woman who was trying to seduce Sheridan,
which was an example of what you were saying of like running with the joke too. Like, it's funny that Ivanova shows up and sees that.
Yeah,
like she didn't need to say like you're about to go where every man has gone before. It doesn't make a ton of sense you would say that unless like you were two people who like watched a lot of Star Trek or something.
Right, which could be the case. I remember when I was the one time I was a player in a Babylon 5 role playing game, which only lasted about 2 adventures. I decided to play a Trekkie, so. And so me and Garibaldi would get together and commiserate about 20th century television.
What else is Garibaldi? I can see him like watching.
He's into the Looney Tunes. He's into the Warner Brothers Looney Tunes. So that was
conveniently owned by the same parent company.
Well, whatever. It was fun and entertaining, and I appreciated the fact that he was kind of into something you could relate to.
I'm just gonna say, like, the Marvel movies mention Star Wars a lot more than Star Trek, and I wonder why.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, whatever. That's just the way the game went. I watched an episode of Lucifer last night with loads of Star Trek references, which surprised me.
Oh, crazy.
I mean, they were in the uniforms, and not just like the kind of generic uniforms, but like accurate uniforms and everything. So.
Well, Trekkies are everywhere. We're in like every writer's room in Hollywood, I'm sure. So
yeah. But yes, getting back to this Deep Space franchise. That whole turning against Earth, I was like, oh wow, because it starts out with kind of this Star Trek-y setup. Oh look, there's this Earth government, and they've got Earth ships and an Earth their own little star fleet, and then suddenly Earth's the bad guys, and they're like fighting Earth, and there's big fleets coming to attack our hero stations, and they're from Earth. You're just like, holy shit, this is some crazy stuff that I mean is perhaps not so surprising if you'd been part of the more wider range of written science fiction, but if you've just been watching the TV show, it was pretty surprising at the time. I guess X-Files was dabbling with the idea that the home government is not something we can trust, but as well, but not in a space opera setting. So
speaking of on the troubles of Earth, Great Maker says, was this the season with the fake news that was horrifying? Yes, they have that that really scary moment where they lose contact with the their space CNN, the what is it, the ISN, right?
ISN, yes.
Is that Interstellar News, I guess?
Yeah.
But yeah, where they have that moment where like their compound is being stormed, where the guys on the news like saying like President Clark's men are like closing in on us now. I don't have much time. I don't know how much time we have, but I have to tell you all this now. Like you hear like gunshots going off and stuff. It feels so real and so scary. And you see like this guy's like a trained news anchor, and he's trying to like efficiently deliver this information, but there's also like this little bit of like the fear of God behind his eyes.
Well, I mean, I have to admit, I thought of that sequence while watching the Capitol get stormed. I was like, this wow, is this really, this surrealism of, is this actually happening?
And they have the follow up on that where they do have like the installation of like the controlled news from Clark.
Yeah.
The propaganda.
Yes. The propaganda.
That's the word I was looking for.
Government run news. Yeah.
It's kind of like naive of Ivanova to be like, yay, we finally got the news back. And she turns on the TV, and then they're just like, President Clark is the greatest president ever. And all the rebellions are all a bunch of terrible people, and we're going to stop them. And she's just like, boo. It's like, what do you expect, Ivanova?
Well, they're cut off at that point, right?
I guess they don't know what to expect.
Yeah, they don't know exactly what's going on. They're probably looking for something hopeful. I mean, perhaps it's a little naive in today's world, but it didn't feel naive at the first time I watched it, but it just felt like, oh, okay, there's something good. Oh no, not good.
Can I another thing on these episodes where we do have like the battle against the other Earth Force ships is that, well, at the time I had problems with the CGI of the battles. Like now when I watch these, I really appreciate how well thought out the battles are. Like you always understand the tactics, you always understand what the objectives of the different sides are. You always can follow who's currently winning, who's currently losing. They're all like very like well thought out, kind of like planned out battle sequences that make a lot of sense and are pretty thrilling.
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain Star Trek has a tendency to turn into tanks at 20 paces, just kind of shooting phasers, torpedoes, and technobabble at each other.
Yeah, you get like a lot of technobabble in there too.
Yeah, and they're like, divert auxiliary power to the technobabble generator. We need more technobabble. And it all feels a little like whereas with Babylon 5 there often feels like tactics actually matter more, and it's more and you can understand what they're doing a lot of times. I will say another show that does that really well, another B number show, Blake 7, did a really good job with its space tactics, especially since they couldn't really afford to do much more than show a ship fly by the screen. So it all had to be done verbally on the bridge and stuff, describing what was going on and how they were doing stuff. But they did a really good job of making me feel like there were some structure or rules to how this works and what doesn't work and what does work and why that worked and why this didn't work. But yeah, they feel a little more grounded, and like it's worth listening to the stuff being said on the bridge, it's worth decoding it because it will actually mean something. Whereas a lot of times with Star Trek, aside from what percentage are the shields at, it's just, I shoot the gun. Did we take out the bad guy? Yes, no. That's the only thing you really need to pull from this stuff.
Like I'll use like a Star Trek Generations, for example. We get a space battle in that movie, but it's like, oh, well, we need like the bird of prey to blow up the Enterprise. Well, how does it do that? Oh, like they learn the shield frequency so they can shoot through the shields. But then, we need like the bird of prey to be defeated. It's like, they can tech the tech on like the cloaking device and make their cloak turn on. It's all like that's all really convenient that like these people can like do these things at these moments. But yeah, it's just
it doesn't have it feels very much like magic spells. I mean, there's really no, oh wait, I have I'll pull out another scroll. There's no real way for the audience to grab on to any more than that, than they're doing something clever. And I like that Babylon 5 often avoided that, or at least provided enough context to feel like you could understand that. Stargate isn't too bad at that either, though they don't do a lot of space battles at Stargate. So yeah, and that just makes you feel more invested. If you feel like there's rules to this, then you feel like then you're going to pay more attention to it, and it's going to feel more real to you. It's not so much that you have to get everything right as you just have to convince the audience that you have done your homework, even if you haven't, and then they're willing to go along with you on things. So yeah, and yeah, the CGI, yes, it doesn't look that great, but it's kind of, I appreciate seeing spaceships maneuver in space like real spaceships would. I find that there's a certain joy and satisfaction to saying, this is a lot closer to what it would look like than what Star Trek shows us, where every ship has to bank in order to make a turn, even though there's no air to make banking make any sense. So,
and B5 kind of set a trend with that, and we see a few years later, Firefly and Galactica and other shows kind of try to use that same type of more realistic space physics.
Yeah.
Brian, what do you think about, I feel like you're going to have a lot to say on this one, War Without End, or the big two-parter follow-up to Babylon Squared, and we get the return of Sinclair.
I had fortunately, I had seen the second half of the first of Babylon Squared as one of the ones I had stumbled a little bit on and seen a little bit in reruns or something. So I kind of had some vague knowledge of what this was about, and so that helped. I love the timey-wiminess. I loved how, and especially on rewatch, I love how it all locks together. I mean, in the Steve Moffat, post Steve Moffat Doctor Who era, this seems maybe a bit simplistic by the standards of what he did, but at the time it was really clever. And in a way, there's the one where Data loses his head, and they find Data's head in San Francisco. Yeah, Time Zero. And they're clearly trying to do something like that there, but it's nowhere near as clever or fun or interesting as what we get in War Without End, the way it all clicks together. And all the more impressive in that wasn't how they were planning to make it click together when they wrote the Babylon Squared. That it was going to be a very, very different War Without End than what we got.
Yeah, you can tell. I don't know much about the behind the scenes on this particular story or what the original intent was, but I think it's fairly obvious. The original intent was that this was stuff that Sinclair would do as an older person, after the 5 years of the show. That's why he is old when he takes off that helmet in Babylon Squared. He's like, it happened all like it did before, whatever he says. I do get Impossible Astronaut vibes watching that. I ain't gonna lie. It does kind of feel like Moffat Doctor Who for sure. But I was super impressed that when I was watching all these shows about almost 20 years ago when they were hitting DVD, and I actually watched the show in order for the first time. This is when I was really impressed. Oh my God, they set this up in season 1, and then we're able to follow up on it here. And it's a really cool way of making lemonade out of lemons with what they do with Sinclair when they had to lose their actor and had to come up with a new captain and all this stuff. And I was and I love time travel, so I was very happy with all the time travel, timey-wimey stuff.
Yeah. And it was it's easy to do a bad time travel story, but this one, it worked well. It played well. The rules were well established and set up, and it all, works together quite nicely and comes together. I don't know what I want to say that the earlier plan was that the original version was that that Babylon 5 would be destroyed, and they would use Babylon 4 to finish the series or something like that. I want to say I read that someplace that was that had been the original plan, was that they would be pulling Babylon 4 into the show, and that's why they have all this footage of Babylon 5 being destroyed. Because
in season 1 we see the future from the Centauri woman has the vision of the station being blown up.
Yeah. And so I think that was the original plan, but for whatever reason it didn't they didn't go with that.
Yeah,
So
well, it was the original plan that Sinclair got married to Delenn during that ceremony in season 1 too.
yeah.
So. The road not taken. But
yes. But I guess Babylon 5's never done alternate timelines, have they? So it seems like
they don't really do time travel outside of B4, do they?
Yeah. Yeah, the B4 thing though. Though once you open that box, you can never close it entirely, is from the point of view of, well, there could be other time travel things happening out there, but in this one it's all predestination. Everything is locked in, and nobody seems to be able to change anything. So, and it was great to see Zathras again.
Yeah.
Zathras is great fun. I can
Although
see
Antonia hated him too when he's given that speech about like, you are not the one and you are not the one, but together you three are the one. You are the one that was. You are the one that is. You. And she was just like, shut up, I get it already. God, I can't listen to this guy anymore.
Well, I will admit that part is one of the places where it feels like, yeah, there was only supposed to be one, but because of all the rewrites, now we have to have three, multiple ones, and we have to make that feel natural with some sort of Trinity thing going on here. Now that's odd because, yeah, whereas I hear a lot of B5 fans saying they don't like Marcus, I think Antonio might be the first one I've run into who didn't like Zathras.
Well, she doesn't like some annoying speech patterns kind of bug her. I guess that's that triggers her. People have like these weird these. Well, they're like, she's okay with Yoda, but everyone else I think kind of sounds like too Jar Jar to her. But
all right.
There's some cool stuff later in the season that I want to talk about. I guess with Kosh, the cool things they do with him where they really tease the finale by Kosh. He says that if I do this, I won't be able to help you when you go to Zahadum, and if you go there, you'll die. But they foreshadow that too, the War Without End, because he meets future Emperor Londo and future Delenn. She's like, don't go to Zahadum, whatever you do. But yeah, like the stuff with when Sheridan is like yelling at Kosh, get off your encounter suited butt and go and like do something, like you want to fight the shadows, like why don't you get out there and do something. And Kosh like reveals the Vorlons to the shadows when they like launch their attack, but and in doing so like seals his fate and is killed.
Yeah, well, I mean, and we kind of learn the rules of that once we finally get to Zahadum. We learn a little bit about why that all happens the way, why Kosh was reluctant to get directly involved, and that why it's a proxy war. So I don't know if you wanted to move on to that or if you wanted to.
Before we do that, let's talk about I think it's called In the Rock Cried Out, no place to hide, or no hiding place. This is the first episode in, well, I don't want to, okay, I'm going to take that back because I don't want to spoil seasons 4 or 5. But this episode has like a kind of a shift in the Jakar Londo relationship where they actually have a cool reveal at the end of this episode of like, oh, these arch enemies are working together. And we see Lord Rifa get his comeuppance after we hate him so much because he's like, if Londo is actually as bad as he puts on, he is sometimes. And I guess Londo kind of seems like more forgivable because they have a guy who's like a lot worse. Lord Rifa.
Oh yeah, that's how you play that. If you're going to redeem Darth Vader, you have to introduce a Palpatine. So. So that is, those anti-heroes, we still root for the anti-heroes because they're up against even worse things that are more loathsome and disgusting. And it's interesting how they come together through slightly different paths. Londo is just realizing that the horrible things are happening to the galaxy as a whole, and that, he needs to find a way to kind of mitigate some of this that he kind of started and try to slow things down. And even if it's just that he's worried about Centauri, whereas Jakar seems to come from more of a spiritual enlightenment angle that makes him say, okay, I can work with Londo. And whereas Londo's still functioning on a very practical level, but it has both of them have let go of revenge as a major issue. So,
well, Londo is still seeking revenge because he thinks that Rifa killed his stripper girlfriend from season 1. It's actually Morden, but Londo thinks it was Rifa.
Yes. So, and that is, hangs over things a bit. But you're like, well, I don't care. Rifa needs to die.
This is where you really see that Jakar has matured when they and it's a cool reveal, by the way, because the whole time you think like, oh, Londo is going to kill Jakar. Londo is going to kill Jakar. And then at the end, it's like, oh no, like Jakar is actually working with Londo and they're going to kill the shit out of Rifa because Londo has that message. He's like, so if to get Jakar to kill you, I'm going to free 10,000 Narns now and then another 10,000 after you're dead, or something like that. So like, okay, like Rifa is never leaving this room again. Like catacombs or caves or whatever they're in. But like when Jakar plants like that data crystal and is just like, make sure this is on his body and his head is intact so they can identify him. You can do what you want with the rest. And then all those Narns just start beating the shit out of him as the choir is singing. It's a really, really enjoyable, just it's kind of like the audience is kind of monstrous to like get this much joy out of seeing like a guy be beat to death, but it is so rewarding to watch and satisfying. But there's a maturity in Jakar where like he doesn't partake in the violence, where like season 2 Jakar, when when Narn gets bombed with the mass drivers, he'd be ready to just rip this guy apart with his bare hands. And here he's like he's moved past that. He sees the bigger picture now. He spent that time in prison. He's like Nelson Mandela.
Yeah. And he got high. So
and he got high on dust. So it expanded his mind. It's like us. We're getting like Dune territory now. But no, that's a great episode. But do you want to go to Zaha Doom, talk about like this this incredible ending?
I remember being just floored when Sheridan's wife shows up. I'm like, oh my god,
what a cliffhanger! For the penultimate episode of the season, and the way that they show that with when things are getting really intimate with Delenn, and they're really building that romance. And then to have like the wife like walk in on that. It's just like oh wow, like there is like that is very impactful. They're also doing that Z minus like so many hours and like what is Z? And I was like, oh, Zaha Doom.
I learned so much of the things I do as a game master in my role-playing games. I learned from watching Babylon 5. Like, Sheridan wants his wife back and wants his wife back. So when do you give the wife back? You give the wife back when it's the worst possible thing that could happen. So that's when you give the character what they want. It's in such a way that they regret that they ever asked for it. So she shows up right then when he's finally moved on. When everything's actually looking pretty happy in some little corner of the universe, things are happy. And then boom, who walks in and and the slow motion snow globe shattering. Is a wonderful visual touch.
Different actress playing Anna than what we saw before. But that's fine. I never noticed that till someone pointed it out to me. Zaha Doom itself, they do such a good job with like the mystique of that world. How it's mainly like we see that Narn ship go there at the beginning of season 2 and get blown up. Yeah. And other than that, like it's something just talked about but never seen. And when they show like the ruins on the planet and stuff, and like the desert winds blowing around, I want like some slow like heavy metal like Doom music playing. Just it's like Electric Wizard or Conan or someone like that. It's like it has just like this epic like evilness to it. that I love. As dated as some of the CGI is, its use in the designs, it's all very, very effective. And the people we meet there,
the context that they build up is enough that even if the CGI can't quite sell it, it still works, because everything else that they've said about the place and things that have unfolded around the place kind of get you the rest of the way, over that CGI. And that's of course risky when your CGI is a bit dodgy and you need to do something that is visually impressive. And I think it works. You don't feel disappointed with Zahadum, at least not super disappointed, even if it is just some guys sitting around in a room on some couches talking to each other. Is what we actually see.
What's the old man that we meet there? His name is either Jason or Justin. I think it's Justin.
Yeah,
it's like that's an incredibly simple name for like this old dude, but yeah, he kind of explains the philosophy of the shadows. We'd kind of like learned enough about the Vorlons at this time. We kind of understand yeah, they're kind of manipulative, but they kind of like see themselves as the parents, and they're trying to raise us younger species to be the ones like fight this war and defeat the shadows. And but they're like, we meet the shadows, and they're kind of like, we're not worried about making you better. We're worried about like turning you against one another so that you can fight each other and like weed out the weak ones, and only the strongest of the strong move on. And it's kind of weird, like I don't know, like kind of Nietzsche, kind of like Ayn Randian philosophy that I think is very flawed and callous and not actually a good thing. But yeah, we definitely understand it after we watch that scene with Sheridan meeting them.
Yeah, it's like, why aren't the Vorlons getting involved directly? Okay, because on some level, this is a giant game. This is they've been doing these proxy wars, and the shadows are kind of just kind of stirring up some chaos, and then seeing what rises to the top out of it. But to some degree, it's more about getting for the shadows. It's just about getting the races to fight each other, and to stir up a big war. And the Vorlons are just kind of, I guess, trying to keep the shadows kind of on the sidelines to some degree. And so yeah, it's interesting when we see that to some degree our bad guys and good guys, or what we thought were the good guys at least, are kind of just collaborating with the bad guys on some grand scheme here that has played out many times before. And the Vorlons are not directly getting involved. They're just kind of training up everybody to fight the war for them. Because they want to show that organized, logical alliance building stuff is the way to go, and the shadows want to show that chaos and Randian is is the way to, this chaos and survival of the fittest is the way to go, and they're both just kind of throwing philosophy at each other, and humans and Narns and Centauri and all of them just get stuck in the crossfire between them, and yeah, so it's the point at which you're like, and yeah, and we begin, well, I guess they'll expand more on the Vorlon side. We get to see the Vorlons in more of a new light afterwards too.
Yeah,
and we've kind of already seen them, started to see them.
The new Kosh is a dick.
Yes,
no one likes the new Kosh.
Yes,
everyone misses the old Kosh.
And we start to realize that like Delenn isn't quite representational of a lot of Minbari. So too Kosh, original Kosh, wasn't quite representational of most Vorlons. I don't know if there's no real example of that among the shadow side of things. It seems like Morden is pretty in step with the guys he represents. So
yeah. But in that sequence, let me just ask you this: Do you remember watching this for the first time?
Yeah. And
what was your reaction?
I mean, I guess they'd spent so much time building Zahadum up. I was a little disappointed when, we're finally going to, confront the shadow. Oh, it's some people sitting around in a room on some couches talking. Okay. And then the fact that, oh yeah, the Vorlons have been playing you. And I was like, all right, is how much do I believe that? Do I trust these guys? Is this all a pack of lies? I'm not sure. I kind of like the idea that the Vorlons are good guys, but on the other hand, Olkesh or Kosh Mark II has turned out to not be so nice. And so yeah, well, as Alexandra says there, but that wasn't necessarily clear, at least not to me at that point in the story. So I was still kind of coming in this sort of kind of black and white, naive teenage viewpoint of, okay, these are the good guys and these are the bad guys, and oh yeah, things are more complicated than I thought. And so I wasn't quite ready to accept that, and I was also a little. And I guess I just wanted to see more shadowy stuff, but I still love the White Star comes ripping through the ceiling.
Yeah,
like,
that
wow.
sold it to me when we got to that. Like I remember sitting in my room watching that on the DVD for the first time and just being like, holy hell, Sheridan is so cool. For doing this. Like the build up to it where he pulls his gun in that little meeting room or lounge or whatever they're in.
Yeah.
But you see like that shadow like coming in behind the door behind him. Like that was like so scary. And so there's just so much tension. And then you cut back to the station and Jakar's like, hey, 2 of my nukes are gone. And you see like that white star like come through that glass dome. It's just like with like Kosh telling him like jump, and like you don't know if he's gonna live or die or what's gonna happen. But it's just is like, yeah, like the shadows like, okay, like this guy might be a contender. We can't kill him. He becomes a martyr. We need to talk to him and see where we stand with him. He's just one guy. He's not gonna hurt us too bad. And then he just like punches them in the nose and kind of like breaks their face.
Yeah,
like, they're not even expecting it. So they're like all of a sudden they're just like standing there like holy hell, I got like broken bones in my face now. Like what the hell just happened? And kind of halts their entire war for a moment. And there's stuff I'm not gonna get into in like season 4, but that's just like I saw that and I was like, oh my god, he is cooler than. He is cooler than Kirk. He's cooler than Picard. He's cooler than Han Solo, Mal Reynolds, Ben Sisko. And this is like the best space captain ever because he pulled this off. Like the heat of the moment, it's like Sheridan can do no wrong. Like I was so pleased with that.
Yeah, and I mean, there's among a lot of fans, he's known as John Newcomb Sheridan because he tends to use nukes to solve all his problems.
Hey. Yeah, even if he only did it twice. I guess they're both pretty noticeable.
Now there's a third one. We haven't gotten to it yet, but
okay.
At least a third one. Maybe there's more than that, and I'm not remembering all of them. But there's at least 3 distinct. Oh my god! Every all or nothing moments where he decides nukes are the way to go. So.
Well, I think you were cut out of the stream earlier when I mentioned it. But my 2 favorite moments of the entire show are, right here with the nukes on Zahadum, and also. When he declares independence from Earth and the station goes to war against the Earth ships. So yeah, my 2 favorite moments of the entire show take place here in this 3rd season. But
yeah, I don't know if they're necessarily. I mean, they're both incredible moments. That just like. It's hard to know how to overestimate, how to describe it. But yeah, they're just fantastic. They just even with the dodgy special effects, you're just like, this is the greatest thing ever, So, yes, I forget what episode. Is it an episode or is it from the expanded universe of novels where they explain the whole look like angels thing? What's going on with that? But yes, it's another manipulation.
Yeah, I mean, we have that in season 3, right? When Kosh appears as Jaquan to Jakar. Like he literally goes into like one of his dreams and manipulates him.
Yeah.
Yeah, so even Kosh, even our good Vorlon that we like, is still like incredibly manipulative.
Yeah. I mean, Jakar still gets to choose what he's going to do with that, what he sees there.
Yeah, Kosh just made sure it was what he wanted them to choose, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like that's I think where Jakar was headed. Is there anything else in season 3 that really stood out to you that you like, that you dislike?
I guess this season, despite all the gray that we throw up in and around the Earth Force and Clark, it's still very much up until right at the end, it's still very much good guys versus bad guys. We've got the Vorlons are ace in the hole for the good guys, and the shadows are the ace in the hole for the bad guys. And we are definitely at the way this ends and the way things will go, things become so much more gray after that. And I have to admit, some of the reason I love season 3 is the purity of it, and is the unambiguousness of it. They were the good guys, and we were the good guys, and they were the bad guys, and they make a marvelous thump, kind of things. And so, you know, when you go back and rewatch it, there's a certain naivety to season 3 that wasn't there at all the first time you watch it, but coming back, you're like, you know, and so I was like, well, what does that say about me in person, that I just want things to be a little more black and white in my heroic space drama? So yeah, that's something we can talk about more when we get into season 4. But I
think Babylon 5, it kind of has like a similar vibe as Game of Thrones, in that there is like a clear cut like evil villain, like with the shadows. You know, Game of Thrones, they have the others, or the White Walkers, that are just okay. Like this is just like a totally evil force with like no good. Like they look like scary monsters. They are scary monsters. They're incredibly deadly and dangerous, and they're the big boogeyman of the show. But in addition to that, you also have a bunch of mortal characters that can be good, can be bad, can be a shade of gray somewhere in between, and the politics of all of that stuff. That's something that I see in both Game of Thrones and in Babylon 5. So I think that's like a excuse me. I think that's an interesting parallel.
Yeah, there is I mean, I haven't seen Game of Thrones, so I'll have to take your word for that. But it's certainly, from what I've heard about it, it sounds kind of murky. But yeah, I love season 3. I love the excitement. It's a kind of a roller coaster, the way it keeps building and building. And even when you have, you know, evil Trill or something, you're still using the B plots to build and ratchet up that tension in the background, and to provide context to everything that's going to happen. Yeah, the way we pinch John Sheridan, and kind of he's kind of the man on the spot with Delenn, though Delenn generally seems to have a certain serenity to herself, whereas Sheridan's kind of, he feels more human. He feels more like a guy who's been put into this situation, and he's doing his best to make it work. So, and you know, trying to figure out a way to minimize the damage caused here and there and everything. He pulls it off, or Boxenlighter pulls it off. He makes it feel real enough anyway, that he doesn't, you know, if it was Kirk there, I think we'd all feel a little more reassured, because Kirk is just kind of like part God. He's totally awesome. There's a certain level of when Kirk shows up, you know, he's going to find a way to sort it out. You know, there's going to be, he's going to work this out once he gets a handle on.
Sheridan kind of becomes part God at this point. Like we don't really learn why until like season 4, but that's already that seed is already planted in season 3.
Well, yes, but up until this point, Sheridan definitely feels. I mean, he's larger than life, but he's not so larger than life that we can't see the stress he's under and can't feel a certain amount of doubt about things and about how well he's going to pull this off. And whether he, you know, he's, you know, we're like, he's probably up to the task, but we're not quite as sure as if you've been watched a whole lot of Kirk, where, you know, by season 3 of the original series, you're like, okay, Kirk's going to sort this out somehow or other.
Yeah,
you know?
Sheridan definitely has, like, you feel like the burden, you feel like the weight on him, and his doubt or his optimism or, you know, whatever he's feeling. It's I don't want to say like it comes off as like less confident, but just more grounded, more human, I guess. It conveys like the nuances of having like the weight of the station on it, or this weight of this war of the galaxy, you know, on them. Like you really feel that weight. And yeah, you do kind of question, well, what's going to happen? Is he going to pull this off? Will it work out? But yeah, I guess we should mention some of the Star Trek alum that appear this season. Not only do we have Walter Koenig return as Bester, but we also get a very famous appearance from Majel Barrett Roddenberry, the First Lady of Star Trek herself.
Yeah, and I love the symbolism that the First Lady of Star Trek is happy to show up on Babylon 5, because there was behind this, you know, among fandom, you'd see all this kibitzing about whether or not one was ripping off the other or whether you could like both. And it was like, you know, dude, Majel Barrett Roddenberry's right there on Babylon 5. I think we can accept that it's just okay to have both, you know. If it's not a problem for her, why should it be a problem for us, you know?
When there's the rebellion against Earth, they didn't obviously have like General Haig on the show, and the reason for that is because his agent accidentally double booked him, and he was on Star Trek Deep Space Nine and a Homefront in Paradise Lost, that season 4 2-parter they're shooting at the same time, where he also plays a high-ranking officer rebelling against the government.
Yeah, he plays kind of the evil version of the exact same character, you know.
Well, that kind of shows you like the difference and why, like, I call this like things you could never do on Star Trek, is because like at the end of the day, like over there, like Starfleet, the Federation are going to be the good guys, and we want them to be the guys. Kind of the point is that like it is a better world is possible. And so like the rebellion force would be something bad, but whereas with Babylon 5, it's like no, like you can't trust the authority. You can't even like you can't trust the Vorlons. You can't trust anyone. You can't trust Earth. It's like the only people that you know are good guys are going to be us, and we might not even all be good guys. So you know with their like the rebellion is the force of good. And the other Star Trek actor I noticed is I'm sure I'm missing a few because there's so many characters in Star Trek, but the monk who used to be the serial killer.
Yes.
he's that naughty hologram with the pet fish in Star Trek Voyager.
Let's see.
In season 4, when they meet that hologram who like killed his entire crew.
Oh yes. So now I'm trying to remember. Was that there's a guy I remember, but I'm trying to remember if this is the season.
But he's good at playing. He's good at playing creepy dudes.
Yeah, Brad Dourif, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's right. Yeah. No, he wasn't. He wasn't the hologram. He was Suitor.
Oh, is that okay? That's another creepy dude.
Yeah. No, he was the Betazoid serial killer.
Yeah, the crazy Betazoid. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're just all talking about like serial killers at this point.
Yes,
Okay,
but yeah, and
I got him confused with that other dude.
All right, yeah,
I didn't know.
was
Like, I never looked it up. I just pulled it out of memory. So I must have been
okay.
confusing him.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, I'm
it's
glad
always
you
fun.
corrected me on that.
Okay, it's always fun to watch Brad Dourif do his thing. He's in fact, this is one of the nicer Brad Dourifs we get.
I don't know if I know him from anything besides Voyager and Babylon 5.
He's got he plays a creepy scientist in Alien Resurrection.
Yeah, I remember the exact dude. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, he's a creep in that too.
yeah. And I'd seen him in a few other bad.
Oh, and I think he's like a creepy like a CIA guy in the Nixon what's his name? Oliver Stone Nixon movie.
Oh, I've not seen that one, but I can imagine.
He's like this creepy like deep state guy.
Oh, and he's Wormtongue in Lord of the Rings.
Oh, I didn't realize that was him because he has like all the hair and everything, the makeup.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's him.
So he's just he's probably a nice dude, and really he's probably just like a normal guy. Talk about like, oh yeah, I put like this new fertilizer out on my lawn, like my grass is looking really like a normal dude. But he only plays guys that are just like slice your throat or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's Babylon 5 season 3. Unless you have anything to add, Brian, I just saved one thing for last, and that is Veer's fiance is the girl that was like super racist against Narns.
Yeah.
That made me like so incredibly uncomfortable, and I thought like this is comical and unrealistic, and no one could possibly be like this racist and this evil and just be into like chopping people up and shit. But then I started watching Babylon 5 season 4, and I was reminded like, oh yeah, some of the Centauri are like pretty sick bastards.
Yeah, no,
there's stuff going on in season 4.
There's definitely some absolute batshit crazy running through some of those noble houses.
Yeah, I don't know if there was like some inbreeding with the royal families back in the day or what, but yeah, they are some psychotic sons of bitches over there.
Yeah. It's too much lead in the water piping,
something like that. Yeah, we'll get to that eventually. People ask me though, they say, Fathery, what's coming up on Tex-Trek? What are you doing next? So I'm bad at giving updates, so I'll give a quick update right now. And that is next week at 7:30 Central on Friday. We will have a live stream. We'll have a live podcast recording in which we will discuss the Woman in Motion documentary that premieres, or doesn't premiere, I keep saying it premieres, that releases on Paramount Plus Thursday on June 3rd. And then we'll talk about it on Friday, June 4th. So if anyone's into that, that is the documentary about Nichelle Nichols and the work she did recruiting women into NASA. So, and not exactly Star Trek, but Star Trek adjacent enough. More Star Trek adjacent than Babylon 5, probably. So we will be talking about that. And then I think the week after that, June 11th, we are going to be taking a week off, but we're going to be super busy after that. We're going to have more Deep Space Nine to talk about with me and Dave. Dave watching season 4 for the first time, me watching it for the 47th time. And we're probably going to have like some big Star Trek news from San Diego Comic-Con in July. And then in August, we're going to be doing weekly new episodes again with Lower Decks, August 12th. And hopefully I'll have some updates from Star Trek Las Vegas, because right now it looks like I'm still going to Star Trek Las Vegas in August. So that'll be going on, and we might get Discovery right after Lower Decks. So I don't know. We're going to take a week off on the 11th, and then we might not have a week off again for a long time, because after Discovery we have Prodigy and Picard and Strange New Worlds, and it's going to be crazy. So it's going to be really, really busy. But yeah, hopefully we'll have time for B5 season 4 and B5 season 5 in the future. If you'll like this though, be sure to let us know that you want more Babylon 5, because this is a little out of our wheelhouse. We like to stick with Star Trek, but this is the best non-Star Trek space show in my opinion.
You guys should get all excited about doing a post season 5 show, so that Fathery has to watch all that stuff, because I think he's avoided it.
Oh yeah. I really don't want to like sit through like the movies and Crusade and all of that. But I guess if a lot of people ask for it, we'll do it. But I'm gonna ask you not to ask for that, but do what you want and like vote as you will.
Anyway.
Yeah, that's it for now though. So Brian, are you gonna show up next week for Woman in Motion?
I don't know. That's the first Friday of the month, so I don't. And also, I have let my Paramount Plus subscription lapse. So,
well, Brian may or may not be with us, but Starfleet Boy said he wanted to join. I think Dave will make it for that one.
Yeah. So yes, I'll it'll be a surprise. Tune in and find out whether I'm there.
It'd be nice if we could have like a woman on there. Like if any women want to come talk about a documentary called Woman in Motion, please let me know, and we'll try to get you on board Friday. But until then, as always, live long and prosper, y'all, or whatever they say goodbye with.
Bester says BC. Bester says be seeing you from the prisoner.
Yeah, okay, yeah, be seeing you. Be seeing y'all. Gotta Texas it up. Be seeing y'all.